Hello.
What's up, True Feelings family? How you guys doing? If you're new to my channel, my name is Crystal, and I hope you stay. And if you do, welcome to the family. I do apologize for not showing up with something this weekend. I had some surprise guests, so it just kind of made it impossible, and it was a beautiful surprise to say the least. But anyway, some of y'all have been requesting that I tell more about myself and my story, although I did this before when I first started doing YouTube. I didn't start off doing YouTube doing reviews. I started off telling my story because I needed to heal. I was going through some things. Believe it or not, you could be sober a long ass time and still be heavily kind of fucked up, like you really can be. So me doing those videos to people I didn't know, mainly my family, because they assumed that I lost my kids because I was an IV drug user, but that was not the case. What I realized during that journey of me telling my story, that I never told my story to anyone. Didn't talk about my past. I did a whole year in rehab. Didn't talk about anything. My mother just found out a whole bunch of shit about what happened to me in like 2015, 2016. So I'm hoping in redoing these videos again, because I deleted a bunch of them, I just deleted them. Nobody was watching that shit. And now that you guys want to know what the hell happened in my life, I feel like now I'm actually talking to somebody instead of my 10 damn family members.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So before I start my story, because I'd like to start at the age of 13. That's a very important age for any teenager, especially teenage girls. That's when we need to be watched. That's when we need guidance. That's when we just need so much, because the predators come in and try to get your children, people. So I figured the 13 is when things started going left for me. So that was a great place to start. But before I get there, let me just give you a little background so you know how I was raised. I like to call myself prom baby. I am the first grandchild on my mom's and my dad's side of the family, okay? So I thought, and I found out I had an older sister later from my daddy, but that's a whole nother story. My parents had me at the age, they were still in high school, 17. My grandfather was a reverend, my grandmother's a missionary, so it was church, Bibles on the table, Jesus behind the dang on door, he looking at you every time, like it was church. It was the house of the Lord. That's how I was raised.
The only Jesus I know is him.
But my mother was forced to get married to my dad. She ended up leaving my dad when I was about 6 months old, went to LA. Long story short, my grandparents, they came and got me, and they raised me. Now, I do not have any abandonment issues. At least I didn't growing up. I was very much loved by two sets of grandparents. My mom and dad were very present in my life. Growing up, I would spend different, on vacations. I would spend a week here with my dad, a week with my mom. My mom and dad, they co-parent so well together. They were just friends. They got married at a young age. She was church girl. Granddaddy wasn't having no bastard ass children. So for the most part, I had a great childhood. I did. I had ponies, back in the day, if you grew up in San Diego, because I was born in 66, so 70s and shit. San Diego was a damn dairy town. It was a very farm town. If you ever been to San Diego, grew up in San Diego skyline, it didn't have all those homes. It used to be a ranch up there. Where you could store your horses. That's where I would keep my horses. And I just say that to say I had a really good childhood. The worst thing that happened to me in my childhood was I was molested when I was still in elementary school. I could have been about 10 or 11 years old. He was a guest in our home. He was there doing a revival at the church that we attended. And like I said, a guest in our home. That happened to me. And of course, the next day I got up and I told my grandparents. I felt very protected by my grandfather and my father, so it wasn't one of those things where I keep a secret. Dealt with it, told them. I don't know what happened, it was a long time ago, and you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. But what I do remember is my father coming over. We're driving around in his car, and he got his little gun in the middle of between us, and he's driving around with me looking for this person. And in my mind, I'm thinking now as an adult, that would have been even more traumatizing if you would shot this motherfucker right in front of me like, Daddy, don't you know that just would have been a little bit more traumatizing if I had seen that shit too on top of what happened? But here's the thing about being raised by your grandparents. Although, like, I didn't go to counseling when that happened to me. I should have went to counseling. I was raised in a family, especially with the church people. You don't talk about what happens in your home. You just keep that shit to yourself. Don't get out and don't do anything because it's an embarrassment to the kid, to the people. Now, I don't think it would have been, like, I don't know. I just know that none of those things happened. Where I was able to see a counselor or talk about it or talk it through. Like, it was literally a forgotten thing where it was forgotten, and at some point in my life as I got older, it came back, but we ain't there yet. But I'm just saying that's the worst thing that happened to me as a child. Other than that, I was raised with good values, with a whole lot of love, and wasn't missing anything from either of my parents. Although they didn't raise me, they were very, very present. So like I said, I grew up in a strict environment, could not listen to worldly music, couldn't wear pants. Like I said, I had to be in church all the time. So it was, I loved when I would go to LA on vacations to visit my mom, because my mom had a totally different lifestyle. My dad had a totally different lifestyle. Like, they weren't like that. They were just regular ass people. They weren't all in. So I want to say I was around 13. I was 13 years old, and I went to go live with my mom. You know, we thought we'd try that out, go live with my mom. That lasted for about a year. I didn't like it. When you come from San Diego, which was like a country bumpkin town back in the early 70s, and you go to fast ass LA, I did not fit in. My mom literally took me to school the first day and found me a friend, and me and that girl was friends the whole time because I didn't talk to anybody. I was very shy, stayed in church all the time. So if you weren't part of the church community, I didn't know how to communicate with like regular people. I came off as a fucking weirdo, I guess. Like, I don't know. So this is when things starts to get shitty. So after a year of living up there, I come back and I moved back to San Diego. A few months after moving back to San Diego, my mom is the seven kids, 4 girls, 3 boys. She's the oldest out of all the kids. My second oldest uncle committed suicide. Okay, that's a whole nother story. But anyway, once that happened, my grandfather, he didn't cry. He was trying to make everybody happy and shit. Long story short, so it won't get too long, is my grandfather was preaching. And normally I'm always at church with my grandfather. And when you grew up in a church community back in the 70s and your grandfather's a preacher and he's at a revival, it's customary for all your family members, like his kids and everybody, to be there at that revival. Now, some of my uncles and aunties were there, but for that night, because I had been in church that whole day, I just didn't go. And I'm so glad I didn't, because my grandfather, who was I was his heart, I was always with my grandpa or my dad. He had a stroke while preaching, a massive stroke. So he never regained speech. He just never regained anything. And these are the people who made sure all eyes was on me. Growing up, I wasn't allowed to be at parks and hang out and just go over people's homes. I was either with my dad working at the record shop with him, or at the hair shop with my stepmother, or at the church with my grandfather, or somewhere with my grandfather. It was always a parental thing there. I couldn't just do what I wanted to do. And that's my advice to anybody with girls. Don't let your girls just go off with people you don't know. Don't do it. Don't let them go over your friend's house you don't know, unless you went over there to visit and see who coming in and out of that house. You have to watch your damn kids, okay? So that's kind of how I was brought up. Things changed when my grandfather had that damn stroke. Now, after my grandfather had that stroke is when I start doing things. I wasn't a runaway or was disrespectful or to my grandmother or did any weird shit like that. But I did start smoking weed. I had a little friend. It was 3 of us. One of my best friends, she lived across the bridge, a place I was told I should never go across. My grandmother always told me, don't go across that bridge. I hate back then when your parents would tell you shit, but don't tell you why you shouldn't do shit. They just tell you not to do it. So in raising my daughter, once I got my kids back, that shit, no. If I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to tell you why. They need to know, why you don't want me across that bridge, because it was never explained. But there was elves and little fucked up people across that bridge. That's where I met my kid's father, who I will call him the donor. He gets no name. So anytime you hear the name donor, just know it's the baby daddy. I have 4 kids by this. food. So now I meet this person through my best friend, because I would be able to, walk her halfway home. And one day I decided I don't want to catch the bus home. I would just walk home. That way I could walk across the bridge and my grandmother wouldn't know. And that's how I met his ass, okay? He was, I'm 14, he was 19, and he sold weed. So that's, that's how that whole little thing started. So we started hanging out. It would be me, my best friend Paula. So that's how that shit going. At that point, he didn't try no weird shit. Wasn't no heavy drugs involved. Just nothing like that, because everybody knew what my daddy was about. So y'all, I graduate from the 9th grade. And during that summer after graduation, I get a call. My grandmother gets a call from my stepmother telling her to tell me, don't let me watch the news, because the feds came to my dad's house, my uncle's house, all my uncle's house. Everybody lived in the same neighborhood, and because they was one of the biggest heroin dealers in San Diego. And then as I grew up, I said, oh, shit makes sense to me. That's why they had the hair shop. That's why they had the record shop. They was laundering money at these damn places. I used to wonder, why is always balloons in the damn closet and shit? Although we was always having parties, but now all the shit makes sense. But here's the thing about the sins of the father. It's funny, my dad sat there and spilled all this poison to people. Okay, I don't know how many people OD'd off the shit that he put out there. Rest his soul, my dad died at Hurricane Katrina. But it's just one of those things where karma is a motherfucker. Here you are selling this poison to people.
And pulling the trigger.
Who turns into an adult fiend? Your daughter. But we ain't there yet. Just saying. So now I'm starting high school year, 10th grade year. I don't have my granddaddy. I don't have my daddy. My uncles and aunts are all fucked up because, it was 80s was teenage pregnancy, freebasing, and then Ready Rock came out. So I had no protection. I just felt abandoned and all alone at that point. Like I had no one. My stepmother, who she started off bringing me to see my dad. I would see my little brother, my sisters, because he had another baby by her. But after that, all that just went away too. I was never invited to like one of my brother's birthday parties. Like I was never, like everybody went away from me. So that just made me gravitate to this grown-ass man that shouldn't have been talking to no 14-year-old fucking kid in the first place at 19, 20 years old. It should, you can't do that shit today, I can tell you that. Call the police on your ass going to jail if you're doing that shit today, right? Now, when we met, he was cool. I like personalities. He's very, funny, and, he had weed and shit. He was, known to, he was a gang member, so he was known. So here it is. Now, I'm gravitated to the wrong thing, but I feel protected because he's jealous, Women, be aware of people who are jealous. That means they just might turn around and whoop your ass. So, the fact that he was jealous, when you're a young girl, you think that shit is cool. It's like, oh my God, he loves me. But that's how you think when you're a 14-year-old girl. You have a 14-year-old mind. You don't sit there and ask, as an adult, when you meet someone, I want to know how you act with your people. Do you like your mama? Do you like your daddy? Do your mama and daddy like your punk ass? You need to know all these things to make a informed decision whether this motherfucker gonna be crazy or not. Like seriously, tell your young girls when they get into relationships, watch how they are around their moms, their parents, how they behave, how they deal with anger. They need to know all that, because you don't want to pop off motherfucker. Because I end up getting a pop off motherfucker because I thought it's jealousy and shit. Now at this time I'm getting high all the time. My grandmother don't know. My grandmother spends most of her time at the nursing home with my grandfather, because remember, my grandfather had a stroke, so he stayed there a little while before coming home. So she didn't know what I was doing, and she didn't suspect that I was doing anything, because I've never been a bad kid. So she didn't know none the wiser. Plus she went to bed early as fuck, so she had no idea that I was high every day of my damn life, right? Every day, get to school, redoing my report card. Like she just didn't know, because back then wasn't no cell phones. All I had to do was be there to answer the phone before her ass was there, and we good to go. She didn't know I was just screwing up all the way around. Now up until this part, me and the donor, we go together, but I'm still a virgin. I'm not trying to have sex. Weed can't make me have sex. Guess what he introduced into my life? That powder. Not crack form, snorting powder. How you gonna be 15 years old snorting cocaine? Okay, I wish the hell somebody would give my daughter cocaine. But that's how things changed for me and made me do certain things that I probably would have never done if it hadn't been for that damn little low ass white powder. I'm pretty fucking sure of it. And I think as a grown ass man, he knew it too. I didn't know. I didn't look see hard drugs. I wasn't around that shit. I stayed in church all my damn life. But I also was enjoying the bad life and feeling like I was grown. I felt like I belonged. I felt, it gave me a feeling of belonging somewhere. Because at this point in my life, the people who were closest to me, they're gone. I have nobody watching anything. I was just out there doing whatever, letting this nigga raise me. Okay, sorry for that words, but that's how it turns out. Letting this nigga raise me.
It isn't glamorous or cool or kid stuff.
So now, y'all, it's my 10th grade year. Finally get to high school. I think I'm the shit. I got an older boyfriend. He got a car. It was me, my best friend Brenda, and my other girlfriend Paula. Here we are, little 15-year-olds, getting rides to school by our little older drug dealer boyfriends and thinking we all the shit. And, just didn't know. We just thought we were the be-all to be-all. We were very popular little 10th graders. But my 10th grade year didn't last too long. Once I got to junior high school and high school, it was new, the whole busing thing and us being bussed out to the white neighborhoods while they were being bussed into our neighborhoods. So they really didn't want us there anyway. So long story short, I stayed maybe a couple of semesters. I didn't even finish out my 10th grade semester went to Claremont High. Got into a fight with a teacher. My best friend Brenda, it was like we had my best friend Paula. She was the little hoe in the group who was always messing with people. Brenda was the brain. She was smart, straight A student. And I was the one that talked all the shit and got your back. Well, my girlfriend Brenda came to me and told me she was in the locker room and this girl called her a big black monster because they were still on some racist shit. So I'm like, okay, let's go. So I'm going. We go downstairs, gym time. I see this girl at the locker. I take her by her pretty hair, swing her, bam, just knock her into, like I wasn't a nice kid. I had a lot of anger issues, unless my daddies and shit. Bobbed her, knocked her into the damn, what do you call those things? Lockers, okay? Now, I knew I did something wrong. So after I did that, I was walking myself to the office. I already knew what the deal was, so you ain't gonna have to come get me. I'm going to the office. So our gym teacher comes out. She's this big manly looking bitch, okay? She comes and she stands over me, and I think I wasn't even 5'2" then. I probably was only 5 foot. This bitch was big, okay? Think she was little lesbian. Girl, she put her finger on my nose and told me people like you don't belong in this school, and I jumped up and punched the hell out of her. Punched her in the eye, knocked the glasses off. Next thing you know, I'm kicked out of school. They trying to sue my grandmama. It was just a whole thing. So now I'm separated from my friends. I can't go back to the school, and they sent me over to this damn Mission Bay High School. So that's where I end up going my 10th grade year. Sorry, I got interrupted a little bit. But anyway, I had got kicked out of school and had to go to the school called Mission Bay. I done lost my friends. Like, we were still friends and we would hang out all the time because we had this whole little car club thing going on. So we would still hang out, but just, not being, I would ditch all the time. That's when my cocaine use with him was more and more. My grandmother didn't know half the shit I was doing. I would tell her I was spending the night at my friend's Brenda's house, and she would just believe me. And that's why I raised my daughter different, because kids lie every day. That's their fucking job. So yeah, I think I saved my daughter's life and her from getting in a lot of situations, because I know what the lie is. I know the shit I used to do, so she couldn't pull shit over on me. I'm not gonna just let my daughter just go anywhere and not go check out the place, who's there, talk to the parents, see who's living in the house, if there's brothers. I'm not letting, I just made sure that the things that didn't happen to me, I made sure she was going to get that covering that I started out with from the time I was an infant until the time I was 13. Thank God I had a lot of good stuff put in me, because once I went out and went left, when I came back, I went back to what I was taught, I went back to what I was taught. So, me getting pregnant the first time, that was no accident. I remember being in the garage, being at my grandmother's house. We would hang out in the patio in the garage. I remember just sitting on a washing machine telling this grown ass donor, everything's been taken away from me. I want to get pregnant. I want to have a baby so nobody can take that away from me. And of course, he was really happy to fucking do that. And I ended up getting pregnant on purpose. I was at school, Mission Bay High School, sitting there. I had this tennis class. Don't know how to play tennis, girl. I'm sitting there playing tennis and I fainted. Ended up going to, the nurse's office. Long story short, my grandmother took me to the doctor, get called back, find out I was pregnant. Now, she really, as much as my grandmother did not agree with abortions, she wanted me to get rid of that baby. She knew he was a bad seed. But still didn't. Anyway, I'm not gonna go there. I can't blame shit on my grandmother. She had lost her son. Her husband had a stroke. She had a lot going on. So I was not the first priority in my grandmother's life. In fact, I just felt like I was not a priority in anybody's life at that point. But this grown ass person, this man, the donor, who I thought loved me because he was protecting me. Now I gotta talk to you, young girls, and even some of you women, about men and jealousy. Before I even had this baby, we would get into situations like we'd be walking and like back then a guy would whistle. I remember this dude whistling. It was an SA dude. And this crazy nig just took off on him and started fighting him. And I'm like, really? You couldn't just like ignore that? But when you 14, 15 years old, you think that shit's cute. Like I said, ladies, that shit ain't cute. If you got someone that's always ready to pop off if another motherfucker is admiring you, and he can't just let that dude admire you because he got you and he should be secure being with you, and he pops off, leave his ass, because he gonna pop you eventually. Everything's gonna become your fault, okay? So I'm just putting that out. So now I'm pregnant. Now, during this whole time, my first pregnancy, he actually had a job. He wasn't a bum-ass dude. He was a bum-ass dude. He sold drugs. Well, I can't say that. I don't know. Whatever. What do you guys think? He was a bum-ass for messing with a 15-year-old, so we're going to keep him there in that status. He stayed bum-ass and irrelevant with that shit. Okay, but he wasn't a bum-ass where he didn't have a job. That shit stopped after the first baby. So anyway, I'm 7 months pregnant. I'm at his house. We on the side of the house. He's smoking weed with his little friends. His name was Squally, his little stealing partner. I didn't know back then he was getting out at night, going around stealing people's shit. That's what he was too. He was a thief. I don't know what happened, what I did. There's nothing that I could have did to deserve what he did. He slapped me, put me in a headlock. I'm 7 months pregnant. He has my head like I'm bent over. It's hurting my stomach. I couldn't get out of this headlock until I bit his ass. I could tell you right now, teeth will get you out of situation. I bit that motherfucker like I was the Walking Dead. He still had my teeth marks. It's in his chest. It's still there. It's like a fucking tattoo, bitch. It's like a fucking tattoo, okay? I bit the shit out of him, but didn't have enough sense to go tell someone what happened to me. Like literally, I could have called my mama. And told her a lot of shit. She would have been there to back me up. She had friends. She knew people. She could have been about, listen. But I didn't. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was embarrassed. And there was only two things that was going to happen. Jail or death. Or maybe both. So I just kept all these little things to myself. That was the first time that he had put his damn hands on me, okay? But I didn't think nothing of it. I let it go because they always say they sorry and shit and they won't do that shit again, right? And you a little girl. I'm 15. I'm a little girl. I'm a little fucking girl and this is a 21-year-old fucking man. Now, the next advice I need to give any parent with a teenage daughter that gets pregnant. If your teenage daughter get pregnant, don't treat her like she's a fucking adult. She's not an adult. You need to still tell her and guide her and tell her what to do and make sure she's doing the right thing and still treat her like a child. Because she's a child that just had a child. So don't treat them like they're an adult. My aunts and uncles, they treated me like an adult. It's like you had a baby, so you're an adult. No, that's the fucking wrong way to treat a teenage mother. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who had that shit happen. Where it's like, oh, you had a baby, you did the adult thing, so now you need to be grown. No, the fuck they don't. You need to be there to support them and help them through their transition. And let's just know they made a mistake, and you need to be there to make sure they don't make any more fucking mistakes, okay? So when your teenage daughter get her ass pregnant, do not treat her like she's an adult, because she is still a child. And that's how them grown men get in and fuck up their lives. So, just saying. Now, okay? I didn't drop out of school when I got pregnant. I stayed in school. That was the last thing I was going to do, was drop out of school. There was a school for pregnant mothers, and that's what I did. I still stayed in high school. Once I had my baby, I still went to school. I would take him to school, and then my grandmother didn't want him at the school with other babies getting sick, so she had me keep him. My grandmother kept him. My mom bought me a car. I was feeling all grown and shit. And I'm still doing cocaine, party on the weekends, but it was something that I did on the weekends. It wasn't shit that I did during the day. Tried to get me a little job. Like, I think I was doing the damn thing. Now, after my first child, like I said, let me go back. I was still doing cocaine. My baby was maybe 3 weeks old, and I was still living at home. I stayed at home with my grandmother till I was like 18. So my baby's three weeks old. My uncle at the time was living at home with my grandmother too. He's in his 20s, maybe early 30s, late 20s. I think, yeah, late 20s. I had never put a glass pipe in my mouth, was never interested in putting a glass pipe in my mouth. It wasn't even the dick donor who put the glass pipe in my mouth. It was my uncle. They would be out in the garage after my grandmother would go to sleep. She would go to sleep early, whatever. So they'd be in the kitchen, freebasing, cooking up their cocaine, the little powder and shit, cooking this shit up. So me and old Donner, we'd be out in the patio or garage or outside the house, like smoking weed. He's like, here, try this. So my uncle was like, here, take this. I'm 16 now. Still too motherfucking young. 16 years old. He said, put this in your mouth. He's literally burning it for me. He said, suck slow, now hold it in. Girl, I slid down the wall and I blacked out, okay? I didn't like that shit, but apparently the donor did. So I did whatever he was doing. Now there's Ready Rock that's out. So now things are just changing. We were still, it wasn't no more, like he wasn't hitting me or doing any of that shit, but our addiction was growing. I was still going to school, still doing everything I needed to do. Really wasn't in the whole crack, the smoking thing. I was just into snorting. I didn't like that shit, so I really didn't get into that right away. So you guys, now it's my senior year in high school, and I get pregnant 3 credits away. I'm pregnant again. Okay, now during this time before I got pregnant, we done got into smoking crack. I didn't like to do it, but I did it. What else was I gonna do? Okay, I'm not making any excuses, but I did it. So now I get pregnant, and I never did drugs while I was pregnant, so I didn't have any crack babies or no shit like that. He wouldn't be around me doing that. He was doing other shit, I found out later. So anyway, after I had my second child, I decided I wanted to get a hair up my ass, because my grandmother was still like, I don't give a shit how many kids you got. This is the house of the Lord. He still can't go back there to your bedroom. He could be sitting right there in that living room. No, he cannot spend the night. He can't do any of that. This is the house of the Lord. So that's not happening. Now here he is, a thief. He ain't got no job. He ain't got nothing. Here I am, 2 kids in, get my little welfare check and my Monopoly money food stamps. Y'all remember the Monopoly money food stamps? So he doing like a lot of niggas do right now, living off their woman, waiting for the 1st and the 15th. Remember that, you guys? The 1st and the 15th, when you got 2 checks a month. Rent was cheap. Back then, you can rent an apartment. All you had to do was have your little deposit, if that, in your damn rent money, and you can move in. Wasn't this credit check shit. You didn't have to go through any of that. Move out, get my little apartment. And I could tell you the day that I was moving out of my grandmother's house, I'm going to tell you what she told me. She was crying. She didn't want me to go. She didn't want me to go. She said, he gonna beat on you and keep you pregnant. I'll never forget those words. She said, Crystal, he gonna beat on you and keep you pregnant. I'll never forget it. But I wanted to be out there and be on my own so he can stay and so we can smoke crack and do all that shit. Okay? And I like to say, I always would say, I was still a good mother. I took care of my kids and do whatever. Yeah, I was. But at the very same token, how could you be if you're a crackhead? But I wasn't that type of crackhead that you see on TV and shit, looking for, like, I just, it wasn't like that for me. Anyway, I'm going to just leave it there for right now. We'll talk about some more shit later on because there's a whole lot and it's just going to get worse and it's just going to get worse, but that you kind of got the gist of my childhood, my teenage life that turned out not to be a teenage life at all. It was just fucked up. Like, it was just fucked up. So I never really had a teenage life. So if you don't get anything from this video, get this. Don't let your daughters just go over people's homes, check their phones, check all their shit. Know the parents of the parents that they hang. You gotta know some shit, okay? Watch your girls. Watch your girls and don't let anybody in your home. Like I said, if your teenage daughter get pregnant, don't treat her like she's an adult. She's not an adult. She's still a child. And you treat her as such unless she's too much of an asshole and you got to put her ass out. But other than that, if she's you treat her like a child. She's not an adult. I'm going to leave you with that. Everything else, let me know what you think in the damn comments. I'm trying to figure out which dumbass reality show I'm going to mess with. Anyway, y'all, don't be an asshole.
This is your brain, Adolescent.